What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A lot of stuff happened yesterday. We had Nintendo's financial information come out, so we know exactly how many Switches are out there through September. Sony had a pretty large presentation with a bunch of games kind of firing off on all cylinders. And then we had some more information come out from the UK for sales. So let's get started. So let's get into Nintendo's financials real quick. They released this information to investors, and this goes through September. This would be through their second quarter of the fiscal year, which goes from April to March. And they gave us the information that the Switch had now shipped 7.63 million units. So we know that at this point that they have that many out there through September, and that's actually a little above what a lot of people were estimating. I think a lot of people were estimating around 7 million, so it's about 7.63 million. Some people just say 8 million, so I guess it falls right in between some of those estimations. Sean did guess 7.5 million, I believe, on this past Spawncast. He was pretty close. RGT85 is pretty close to the amount that was actually reported here, but that is quite a bit. In fact, it's so many that Nintendo has actually moved their forecast up for this fiscal year from 10 million up to 14 million, which would actually push them, in that case, to 16.74 million, because keep in mind, this fiscal year does not include the initial 2.74 million Switches that sold in March last fiscal year. So they would be coming up on 17 million Switch units if everything that they have projected comes true in its first 13 months, which is impressive to say the least. That means that they are going to attempt to outsell the Wii U in its first year. Wii U's lifetime sales in the Switch's first year. And keep in mind, Nintendo is pretty conservative about their projections. There's a good chance that the projections for the Switch really outdoes their goal right now. So they might end up over 14 million for this fiscal year. They could end up in like 15 million territory, with the roof probably being 16 million. Keep in mind, they are now targeting the PS4's first year sales with their fiscal year coming up. And that would be pretty impressive if the Switch's first year matched or even exceeded the PS4's first year, because then I've always talked about the second year in systems lifespans generally is where things really start to pick up. That is what happened with the Wii, where they went up to 24 million units sold in its second year, which was massive. I still have never seen a console do that since then, or before then even. So who knows where the Switch goes from here. Nintendo has even alluded to bigger and better things coming up this year, with some announcements coming. I assume there's going to be some kind of direct in January, as we all do, where they can just drop it, second week in January, direct is coming, 40-minute direct. Get ready for some 2018 announcements. We already know Fire Emblem, Shin Megami. Of course, we think Pokemon or Metroid will be there, but right now the Switch is in good shape. It's selling. Stock seems to be keeping up for the most part. And keep in mind, guys, what they've reported does not at all include anything that has to do with Super Mario Odyssey. And you saw how crazy that was when that launched. So at this point, it makes sense for them to increase their projections up to 14 million if Mario Odyssey is still not even been taken into account here. Now, the software came in at 27.48 million shipped, and we're going to go down the list very quickly of some of their top games. Of course, Zelda is still at the top. Zelda Breath of the Wild, 4.7 million. However, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is creeping up on it slowly at 4.42 million. Splatoon 2, which of course came out in July, already up to 3.61 million. 1-2 Switch, 1.37. ARMS at 1.35. ARMS really has not moved much this past quarter. It sold initially, and then it's kind of been pretty stagnant since then. I don't know if it's going to pick up again. That might be around what it is when it all is said and done. But it was a new IP, and Nintendo might work with it more going forward, or they might start working on a sequel in a few years anyway, but they will continue to release DLC to help it sell. Now, on the software front, they originally had it projected at 30 million, shipped at that point. Keep in mind, these are all shipped numbers. Nintendo has a harder time, as most companies do, to actually figure out how many have really sold through. It's a whole nother process. It's easier for them to tell us upfront to investors, this is how many we've shipped to wholesalers who have then shipped it to stores, or this is how many we've shipped to, Walmart or Target, places that deal with them really directly at that point, because at that point they have receive the money, or at least a note of some kind, to then collect the money in 30 days, 45 days, whatever it is. So at that point, their accounts receivable is taken care of, or they just have money in their account from it. So to them, they don't care once it leaves, because, well, they have their money. The software has now gone up from 30 million projected to 50 million, which is pretty good as well. They might even top that by the end of this fiscal year. So, man, the Switch is looking pretty powerful right now as a seller, and I don't think any of us really now anyway have doubted that. Some companies have, as we've seen, which we're going to talk about one of those later on, but for the most part, Nintendo has pretty much gotten just about everything right when it comes to selling the Switch to a mainstream consumer audience, despite really the concept being maybe a little confusing to some. They've done a pretty good job making people want this system in its first year. They've provided the software, and at this point, they provided the correct marketing, something that the Wii U did not have at all. Some of the worst marketing I've ever seen went into the Wii U. The Switch, completely different story. So now I'm curious how much they break that projection with Christmas coming up and the Switch still being that hot item when we have Xenoblade coming up. While that is more of a niche consumer item, I do still think it'll sell well enough. Definitely not something like Zelda or Mario Odyssey or Mario Kart, but it'll sell well enough, I think, to move some Switch units. They also made mention that they managed to ship 1.7 million Super Nintendo Classics, which is a lot. That is a lot. That's why it really topped the NPDs, because I doubt anything else was even close to that. That is a massive amount of systems, even though of course it's spread out. I have a feeling, as we've seen with their splits, 40% might have gone to the United States, as they shown with the Switch, where 40% went to the US in terms of really all of the Switch units out there. I have no doubt that at this point, the Super Nintendo Classic is being well stocked. I keep seeing it restocked even at places like Walmart and Target. So they followed through with their promise here. They must have seen how bad the NES Classic was when it came to stock, how people were fighting over it. Scalpers were having a field day. Not this time. I have to say, I see someone on Craigslist, but now they're trying to get like $100 for them, $150. Before NES Classic, they were looking for $300. So Nintendo, good job on the Super Nintendo Classics. I was able to get one and then another one for the giveaway, and then I'll have no problem getting two more. So I'm glad to see an item that I desperately wanted, because it's such a good system, such a good pickup to have for $80, was easy to get. Whew, okay, now that we're done some of the financial information for Nintendo, it's a big deal whenever their quarters come up, because they give pretty much rock solid information as to what's out, because we're always trying to guesstimate and figure it out. Oh, by the way, tomorrow Media Crates, that is going to be interesting because Mario Odyssey will be on there. But Sony, of course, had their big stream for Paris Week, and there was some good stuff in there. I must say, I was very happy with some of the trailers that they showed. I was super excited for Spider-Man, by the way. Oh man, Spider-Man looks awesome. They showed more kind of from the story angle, and it looks like it's going to be really neat. It looks like you'll do the whole double life thing with Peter Parker. They showed Miles Morales there and everything. And then, of course, they also showed The Last of Us 2 at the end of the entire presentation, and it kind of left us with a bunch of questions. People are now trying to figure out, well, what did we just see right there? I don't know, and it's going to be a good game. Some people were kind of turned off by the violence of the trailer, but that's kind of what The Last of Us has always been. It's always been a very gritty, very realistic looking, despite it being a lot of fantastical elements to it. It's always been a very gritty story that they've told. So while some people were turned off by it, I thought it pretty much portrayed the game exactly how it's supposed to be. Then we also got, which looks awesome, by the way, Sucker Punch's a new game. It's a new IP that they're working on, and it looks really cool. It's called Ghost of Tsushima, and it's going to be an open world style samurai game, kind of taking place, according to them, in like medieval Japan. And this is going to be really cool. I like the look of it. While we didn't see any gameplay, and that's always something that does kind of bother me when it comes to these kind of things. These reveals are usually just cinematic trailers. According to them, they've been working on it for quite a while, so we might see this next year, I guess is what they're saying, and I'm sure we'll see some kind of gameplay. We might even see some gameplay as soon as like PlayStation Experience coming up in December. But I love the direction they're going to take. They're going from something like Infamous to something like medieval Japan, where you play as a samurai, and according to them, it's going to be like an action stealth adventure. Super excited to go in that direction. I'm really happy to see this game, and I'm just going to wait and see what kind of gameplay we get, because all we can really pull from right now is the idea, the setting, and the cinematic trailer they gave us. They also did this with a bunch of indie games, kind of in like the pre-show. There was a pre-show, and then there was like their big presentation. The pre-show had a lot of indie games and VR games. Really, the indie games were pretty much head by Guacamelee 2, which looks really cool. And then they finished up with Spelunky 2, and then there were a bunch of other ones littered in there. So many trailers to go through, and you can just look down the game list and see that they showed off a lot. Guacamelee 2 looks good, and I really like that Spelunky is getting a sequel. Very cool. I'm a big fan of indie games, so I'll be checking out both of those definitely. We also got to look at the UK sales charts that really took place during last week's, that has Assassin's Creed, Mario, Wolfenstein. They are all on this chart, which you're going to see here. Number one was Assassin's Creed Origins. Completely expected this. Several times more Xbox and PS4s than Switches. Right below that, though, Super Mario Odyssey, number 2. FIFA 18 dropped to number 3. Wolfenstein 2 below that. Gran Turismo Sport. Grand Theft Auto 5 still won't go away, by the way. Destiny 2, South Park, Middle-earth, Shadow of War, and then WWE 2K18. None of these include digital, but the big thing here is you saw Wolfenstein there at number 4. According to sales trackers, there's a slight issue with that listing. See, it looks like it's pretty good. Number 4, okay. There was Assassin's Creed, there was Mario Odyssey, okay. Here's the issue. According to sales trackers, what information they have right now with these physical game sales, Wolfenstein 2 tracks 50% below Wolfenstein 1. That is a problem, because that shows that people are not buying into this game that's a single-player only experience. Doesn't have loot boxes, doesn't have multiplayer, and then look what's number 1, a game that has loot boxes and kind of takes advantage of those microtransactions, right? It has microtransactions all over the place. Wolfenstein at number 4 doesn't have it. Now, Mario Odyssey, of course, at number 2 does not have that either, but it's a well-known name. It's a game that people who have a Switch are going to buy. I bet you in the UK, 80% of people who have a Switch bought Mario Odyssey on Friday. I can tell you that now. It was so popular all over the place that if you have a Switch, why weren't you buying Mario Odyssey? Even if you're trading stuff in the GameStop, you wanted Mario Odyssey. But here's Wolfenstein 2, a game that is good. It has a great Metacritic score. People are giving it critical acclaim everywhere, but it falls number 4 and comes in well below the first one. Now, we'll see what digital sales are, but I don't think that's going to save it. I think it just underperformed, and that's not good. That's not a good look for these type of games, guys. These kind of games need to do better, or they'll go away. So I hope there are people who are waiting for it to come out on the Switch, and it'll get a nice little second win when the Switch comes out, right? It'll get this nice second win and sell some copies. Hopefully by then even there are a bunch of Switch owners that do buy into it, but I don't know. This is worrying. That's all I'm going to say. Why would they build these type of games if they can sell to the same audience, get more money from them, probably make up quite the difference, maybe more than that even, in loot box sales? I don't know. Even if I'm a developer and publisher like this, and I see this, throw some loot boxes in because it's going to sell the same anyway, I guess. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about our favorite company, right? Even, it doesn't matter what system you're on at this point, Capcom looks like a shell of its former self, right? I mean, they do a lot of ports. They are very, very conservative now, which is almost concerning to a degree, right? It almost feels like they're concerned or scared to take a lot of risk. They took Monster Hunter, which was on a handheld primarily, and they're moving it to a larger audience with a bigger scale. That's fine. But we get nothing but port after port. Okami comes back again, right? Resident Evil gets ported again, Revelations. And now we find out that after all this information about the Switch comes out, where it's doing really well, but Capcom's not really showing up and supporting it, despite them recommending that more RAM gets put into the system. And a spokesperson simply said, well, you know what, there wasn't a lot of time to do it for its first year. This is common. But then we see companies like Bethesda being the odd one to support the Switch. Who would have thought Bethesda shows up with games, right, to support the Switch? And Capcom is constantly being called out for not supporting the Switch, despite them asking for more RAM in the system. I don't know what Capcom's deal is, but they are really concerning me from a business standpoint, because I think they're afraid to take risk. I think they are heavily relying on Monster Hunter, and I think they looked at the Switch and saw another Wii U, which, listen, I can't blame Capcom completely, right? Because you can only go off the last thing that company showed you, and that's the Wii U. So I get it. I get why they're hesitant to support the Switch. And in their minds, they'll just do it the second year. They're probably working on stuff now. I mean, Resident Evil's coming out, but it's another port of a port, right? So I guess they're just getting it figured out. Big misstep, by the way, on Capcom's part. EA, big misstep, and Activision, I think, big misstep there. So they'll probably get it corrected. They're all probably working on stuff for it now. It's super weird to see this from a Capcom when they could have ported things like Okami, right? That should have been a lock. Mega Man Legacy Collection should have been a lock. It's just, I don't know about Capcom anymore, guys. I'm telling you, I'm expecting some bad news out of them eventually, layoffs or I don't know, something, but something's got to change over at Capcom because they are not the company I remembered 10 years ago. That, ladies and gentlemen, is it for Newswave. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Definitely throw a like if you enjoyed the video. It helps the video in search results, recommends, and everything. It is a big help if you just put a like on the video. Let me know what you guys think about any of the stuff we talked about today, though. Definitely about Nintendo's financial situation here with the Switch. Seems like they're doing well, right? Seems like it's taking off. But do you guys think that the second year can continue that momentum? Do you think they have some stuff up their sleeve for next year? If they just put a 2018 release date on Pokemon, they're set. 2018's taken care of, right? Also, let me know what you think about Wolfenstein 2's disappointing launch in the UK. Of course, we saw the same thing with Destiny 2, and that seems to be okay, I guess, but Wolfenstein 2 doesn't have the legs that Destiny does. Destiny's charging people for things like, microtransactions. They have all these expansions on the way, whereas Wolfenstein 2 seemed to want to be like a one and done, buy this, you have the full experience kind of game that gamers want, but they're not buying like they used to. It's so weird. Let me know what you guys think about that. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.